Дякую всім, хто прийшов, хто дивився.
Thank you for everyone who is with us. UCMC continues its work. The topic of the next briefing is presenting results of DE art workshops and announcing the exhibition on decommunization. Our presenters are Leonid Maruschak, curator of UCMC Art Initiative, initiator of the workshop, Olha Honchar, assistant to UCMC Art Initiative, our guest Yevhenia Molyar, fine arts expert, curator of Izoliatsiya Foundation, Project Soviet Mosaics in Ukraine, Alina Yakubenko, artist, curator, visual part of the workshop. Leonid, thank you, esteemed friends, esteemed guests. I would like to explain how in the result of the cultural art residence above the God in Vinnytsia, we had three workshops in Slavyansk, Donetsk, and Mariupol, and also we will announce the exhibition which will take place, and in detail we will talk about how we are implementing these three events, who supports us, and what the exhibition will look like. Olha Honchar will talk about that. Thank you, Leonid. I would like to start from what it was. What is workshop there? There are many questions. After we organized residence in Vinnytsia, it was a big event, about 150 artists, about 30 painters were discussing the topic of decommunization, and we realized that we need to share this experience all over Ukraine, especially in the east, because we had guests from eastern regions, and they said it would be great if we go there and organize something there and share our experience. So we decided to develop the art workshop, which was supported by USAID project, and we selected such a project, which is the format of the project. It's like art interventions. The first part of the project was invited public figures and experts would share their experience in implementing the projects on management of culture, on how via cultural project you can unite the community and authorities, how you can communicate. The participants of these workshops were local activists, and the second part of workshop were invited painters who were researching these places. They were together with us. They were going, making photographs, researching. They were looking at what's happening. And this way we collected material that we will use next year. We collected a very big database of the social and cultural activists in the east of Ukraine. We met all of them, and this way it was all happening. Talking about location, one of our topics is decommunization. Another one of them was decommunization. Another one was the problem of public spaces. What is the public space? It's the space where the community, the authorities can meet and they can discuss anything at the neutral territory. We selected public spaces in classical understanding. In Slavyansk it was a library, in Severodonetsk a theater, and in Mariupol it was the history museum. And for 3 days we turned these spaces into creative spaces where there was internet, there wasn't free access to them. We organized workshops there, and in the end we presented there was a presentation from our artists. And now Yevgenia will talk about the public space and what we learned about decommunization in the East.
The idea of rethinking the public spaces drop into our minds. In Vinnytsia, where we have chosen the non-operating building of the cinema theater, and it had been declining, and we decided to revive it and to reclaim it as an art space. And later on, we came across the understanding that that huge post-Soviet heritage, that big number of post-Soviet facilities which we possess in around the entire country, including these territories, we decided to revive them and to invite people for communication to those buildings. The process was unusual for us. It was like an experiment from the very beginning. At the very beginning, it was not clear how we would like to structure our work because this was a grassroots initiative of the artists who just came with their general vision and trying to institutionalize this idea. We approached to some agencies, including UCMC, and discussed how we can make useful products out of that ideas. All the artists who approached to us, they had their own programs. We only provided them with the opportunity to travel with us and to carry out their own artistic research in the field conditions in the East. And we simply invited the artists, and we among our artists we had dance lab, which made a series of performances. This is the way to facilitate the dialogue, to facilitate communication. Because our approach is that in the public space, you should facilitate communication between local community and the authorities in this community, and this would enable to form the voice of the public and to make it heard by the authorities. And this artist from Dance Laboratorium organized communication. People discussed topical issues and were coached how to maintain dialogue. Although our primarily purpose was not to organize training or to do a sort of preaching. We just wish to organize communication with local residents of the regions, and our participating artists found it very useful to speak to these people, and even the opportunity to visit those libraries, theaters, museums, to communicate with people, and discussions around artistic methods and presentation of diversity of social issues which could be presented via artistic methods. In Vinnytsia residence, we discussed possible methodologies, how this could be done, and Later in the East, we tested those methodologies. We managed to establish good contacts. We plan to keep in touch with those people. And in future, we plan to organize longer-term residence projects in those cities and towns in the east of Ukraine, because now this was like a sort of artistic research, like the first probe to understand what we can do there. Our participating art is based on the materials which they brought from this trip. They are now developing some works which will be presented in late December on special exhibition here in Kiev, and Alina will describe. Good afternoon. In our micro residence project, which included trips done by artists when they travel, when they do sort of research, artistic research in the field, when they develop some minor projects, when they try to fill the local situation and try to fill the situation with decommunization, with the warfare situation in the East. On December 25th, we'll open the exhibition of our artists who participated in this field trips. Some of our artists studied the visualization in the streets, and he tried to see the city with the eyes of local resident. And we involved IDPs from Lugansk, we involved local artists, we involved local residents. Our artists made sketches, made pictures, documented many objects related to the military actions, and this very artistic project shows the visual picture of the contemporary city, and this project shows the past and today of Donbass, and they invited all the participants to think about Museum of Donbass, and they made this joint image of the museum presenting contemporary Donbass history. Also, artists made a lot of videos, and these videos will be presented on the exhibition in late December.
I would also like to go back to the slides which I just very quickly showed. One of the topics was public space that we discussed, but we would like also to go back to the topic decommunization. We worked with that in the format of discussion. These were the most emotional and the most difficult workshops. Basically, that was the dialogue with local people, because people would open up there and they were saying what they were thinking about. And it was not just about decommunization, about renaming the streets and the monuments. By decommunization, we mean First of all, thinking differently about the history, possibility for every citizen to get involved into forming the face of the city, because we have a lot of things from communist times. If you just remove it, then the face of the city will disappear. And one more instrument that we used is a photo quest on what needs to be decommunized. People were walking along the cities, were making photographs of what they believe should be decommunized. But there were certain things that they were registering which have nothing to do with this process. And we selected the most interesting photographs, and we will tell about that. Like in Slavyansk, on that photograph, you do not see the table. It says that this is the courtyard of some proletarian communists, or like this one.
Великий надпис зліва про те, що
Or here, that electrification is the basis of the communist state. It's still in the center of the city. Also, the photo quest, what needs to be decommunized in Severodonetsk. Some of the monuments are decommunized, others not. Some paintings, murals, which are still in the cities, or things which are left after the Soviet Union. What to do with such things? It spoils the aesthetics of big private companies which are named after certain things in the Soviet Union, or endless not finishing buildings. Who's responsible? Here it was interesting. Someone organized decommunization, and the Lenin Street were blacked out, and then someone else wrote that that's Lenin Street. Or the big houses, what to do with them? Palace of Culture, named after Karl Marx. Or Azovstal, the sculptures, mosaics.
говорювати із місцевими і думали,
We were trying to discuss that with locals, and in most cases we decided that all these big premises are to be used for social, cultural initiatives. And as to cultural heritage, first of all, you need to understand whether that's some cultural achievement or the heritage of Soviet times, because many of the Ukrainian artists were building in those times, and that is all part of our history. It cannot be just destroyed and eliminated. We as organizers, we were not artists, but we also wanted to do something. And Leonid Maruschak, together with Svetlana Yarenish, organized information cubes. Svetlana suggested how the famous people of Slavyansk, how their portraits are to be shown. Sveta suggested these portraits, and also one other of our interventions in each city we would publish the postcards with the photographs of mosaics or some interesting things which we would like to share. And this is about the following. Our artists go there Friday, Saturday, they make photographs, we select, we post on Facebook the photographs. If someone wants to get a postcard, leave your address, and that was a very interesting thing because many people would leave their addresses. We would give the postcards for local people to sign them, and then we were watching the reaction of people on Facebook when they would receive such a postcard, and they would say, how can a postcard come from Slavyansk, Severodonetsk with something so bright? This way, they were thinking of changing their attitude to this region, and we wanted also to show that it's important to tell the story via art and culture, because otherwise this history will be told by someone else, and it will not be the best history. And then I would like Leonid to say a few words about people who would come to us, about partners, and about different organizational things, because just to go to 3 towns in the east, and everyone was saying, why are you going there? Some organizers, some participants did not tell their families that they would go there. And this is our experience that we want to share with those who want to go there. I would like Leonid to tell us more about that. And this way we'll try to sum it up. Finishing the arts residence in Vinnytsia, we realized that we need to talk about these things, selecting the place where we would like to talk about that. We took it, the title, Where Should We Talk About That? In every place it was the classical example of public space. We started from Slavyansk. Things were happening there. There were people who were there. They were not public participants of our events. They would very often join the dialogue with us, and the number of participants would grow up all the time. And the number of participants it depends on how many representatives we had in Vinnytsia. And the biggest delegation was from Mariupol, and the biggest number of representatives was in Severodonetsk. As to the format, we did not go there to teach someone or to convince someone in something. We wanted to share the experience so that the artists can present their vision, and this way we avoided the situations of conflict. When we were planning to go there, we would get some comments that if you paint something, we will break your hands. And the most frequent question that would be asked was, are you here to work, to show that you work for the grant? Personally, for me, it was a surprise that the most popular things, especially in Mariupol, were artist talks, and that's when painters talk about their work. Some were presenting their projects. If in Vinnytsia, no one would go but us in Mariupol. I had to finish it because we could have been late for the train. And Ola told about our small interventions, about postcards, about information blog. When in public space we would put information about people in whose names the streets will be named. We were talking about decommunization, which had the big support of local people. Going there, we received more questions than answers, especially when it comes to museum. In Slaviansk and Mariupol, they do have the state museums. And these were the museums which were just small provincial museums, but Severodonetsk, which is a big center, they don't have any state museum. They do have the one private museum there, but this topic about the absence of humanitarian topic in that region and in the country gave us a big impetus to work on, and we will be doing similar things next year, working with artists, but in any case we will not be doing anything without the support from there. We will stimulate and support initiatives, local initiatives. But the main thing I would like to say is that starting the work with the team with which we worked in Vinnytsia, there was a risk that no one will agree to go with us, but in the result, we had to request some of the artists we had to refuse some of the artists. It was quite pleasant in Mariupol. The artists stayed one day longer, talking about our plans for the future. The support of locals and artists from all over Ukraine stimulates us to further work. We understand how we'll be moving forward. We understand that we are moving in the right direction. Again, I would like to remind that in the end of December, we'll organize the exhibition. We selected one location, which everyone knows as The Plate, in Libitska Square. That's Scientific Technical Library. That's the Soviet rudiment, which everyone knows. And we will have great conditions there to present this exhibition. How long will that last? Will the entrance be free of charge? Where can we get the information? We have a group in the Facebook. All information will be on the website of the UCMC. The entrance will be free, traditionally 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Any questions, anything to clarify? Please introduce yourself.
I'm Svantag, a journalist. That project which you described, was it more targeted in the region, or was it aiming to increase awareness throughout Ukraine about the regions? First, it was very important for us to work in the region. We were thinking about decommunization, and we tried to understand what is the situation with the perception of decommunization in this region. Slavyansk is a city with multi-aged history, and we believe that popularizing this rich local history, we may emphasize pre-communist past of the region. In Mariupol, they have a very strong ancient Greek community, while in Severodonetsk, we also can emphasize the things which are not related to the communist past. And in the future here, we will work much in Zakarpattia region, in Transcarpathia region. We wish to raise awareness around Ukraine about those cities. On the one hand, but on the other hand, we wish to travel around the region and to show local people that they can use all possible up-to-date means to speak to other people and to share their own story with other regions. That is, we need to overcome the stereotype that Slavyansk is the warfare, it means the ruins, total ruins, etc. And I tried to Google an information, to Google the links to Slavyansk or Severodonetsk, and the biggest number of references was about war and ruins. We wanted to show that there are people living there. There is life there. The life continues, and there's a very interesting localities. And my colleague Yevhenia mentioned that it was not just decommunization. It is not post-industrial region. It is not neither the post-communist region, and we believe that those public spaces which we opened for broad discussion, these were the venues where people were able to bring all these questions. Since there are no further questions, I would like to add that I benefited much. There were a lot of funny things, and I'm very pleased to hear the local residents when they said, "You should not have pity about us. We are at the beginning of our new life," and I believe that jointly we will overcome all the hardships, not just in those regions, but throughout Ukraine. Thank you, dear friends, and our next